my name is Chloe, and welcome to another TGI Friend Day. So today I have somebody that I am very intimidated to talk to, because this gal I have been watching for a long time, since I started watching Booktube, and she has gone through name progressions and so many different phases that I have loved watching. And she vlogs, she reads a whole variety of stuff. In the month of March, she is hosting the Irish Readathon. And you guys, her accent is to die for. So Eva, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi guys, so I'm Aoife from Words of Clover. I was previously known as Fred Weasley Died Laughing. So the new name is almost a year old now. So yeah. I'm getting used to saying it. I don't have to edit it so much at the start of my videos, because sometimes I still start off with the wrong channel name. And that was just such a lovely introduction, Chloe. Thank you so much. I'm embarrassed now.
Oh, well, there are a few people that I really started watching right when I got into Booktube. And because how long have you been on Booktube?
I think it was 5 years in May. So it's coming up to 6 years now this year, which feels insane because it doesn't feel like that long.
Yeah. And have you been consistent the whole time?
Yeah, I think so. I kind of vary between maybe two uploads to 3 uploads a week. And then the last year or so has probably been a little bit slower with everything. And then, kind of as you get older and other bits of life start trickling in, and it's just a little bit harder to get time. And then I think there was only a couple of months here and there where I might have had a couple of weeks break, but it's been fairly consistent. So something I've loved doing and have kind of tried to always carve out time for, I guess.
So how old were you when you started?
I was 24.
Okay.
Yeah, about 24.
Have you always been a reader?
Yeah, because there's some tags that sometimes ask this question, and I always sometimes feel jealous of people who are like, I became a reader when I read Harry Potter or Twilight or Percy Jackson. Where for me, I'm like, I cannot remember one particular book that got me into reading, because for me it was always that I was just a reader. My dad would say, when I was really, really small, before I could read, he would find me in his room with the books, and I'd have them out in my lap, and I'd almost be looking at the words before I could read them. And then when I was very young, when we would be our kindergarten, I guess, when we're 6 or 7, and my teacher would say she can read as well as a 10-year-old. It was always something that I just love to do, was because it was always what I did mainly was reading.
And so did it always come pretty easy to you?
Yeah, it always did. Always. It was always something that would, I would be given out to don't read at the dinner table instead of people sort of their Game Boys or something else. For me it was put your book down.
A book. That's funny. So what did you want to be when you grew up? Do you know?
For me, I always wanted to be a vet, because I was always really into animals, and my first books that I really loved were all animal books. So it was all Animal Arc, which I don't know if they had them in the States and Canada, but that would have been it would have been a really big kind of UK series, and it was about a little girl who her parents were vets, and she used to go and rescue animals. So I always wanted to be her. I was I want to be this, and then I want to grow up and be a vet, and look after the dogs and the horses and everything. And so that was always something that I always would have loved to do. And while I still have kept my love for animals, it eventually developed, and then I eventually went into writing and journalism then when I graduated from school.
So what pets do you have?
I have 2 dogs now. So we had 3, and then we lost Jeremy just before Christmas. So we've 2 dogs, and
wait, your dog's name was Jeremy?
Yeah, it's your husband's name, wasn't it? Yeah.
That is so funny.
So we had Jeremy. Yeah.
So many times, growing up, people would I would meet people, and they would be like, "Oh, my dog's name is Chloe." Chloe.
I don't think I've ever met a dog called Chloe, but
really, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
So what books are you most into now? What genres would you say are your favorites?
For me, it's always I love reading a variety of things, and I love giving everything a chance. For me, I still really, really love fantasy books, and I think I haven't given myself enough time the last few years of really reading as much fantasy as I want to, because I feel there's so many books out there. I just don't have enough time to read them all, basically.
Well, they're all so big. Like,
yeah, and they are, yeah, they're like, sometimes it's easier to pick up something, you know, that's just like a little bit faster to fly through.
Yep.
So for me, yeah, fantasy I love. And I think for me, it's always, even from when I was small, I just loved, you know, the little bit of magic that's always in fantasy, and the journeys and the friendships. And you do always in fantasies, you normally see like a horse companion or a dog companion or some sort of animal companion, which I think I always loved as well. But yeah, I've always loved fantasy and magic, and the idea of magic being in a world as well.
Yeah. So do you write novels now?
I think I've had like my novel in progress. Has been in progress for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
And maybe someday I'll get past chapter 4, which is like what it's currently on. It's like I have the idea and I know where I want to go with it, and I just don't give myself the time basically to sit down with it. I was like, I need to either get up really early or really set myself time at some point in the day to do it. And now and again, I'll get into some sort of like mindset where I'll sit down and do it, but it just never seems to happen. So it's definitely something I just need to like just do.
That's the way I am with like everything that I need. It needs to be like a part of a routine. Like I do it at this time every day or every week or whatever, like no questions, or else I just don't do it.
Exactly.
So maybe it's because I'm American and you're in Ireland, but somehow you always find books that I have never heard of, and yet I'm so intrigued by. So how do you find your books? Like, how do you find what you're going to read next?
For me, like it used to be kind of just browsing the library. And I would just browse and I would just see what like titles I was interested in, or like there's sometimes I would be like, oh well, last week I looked in the A to C section, so this week I'll go over to like the like T to V section and see what's there. And that's how I always used to kind of find a lot of authors. And then now it is mostly Booktube and who I'm watching. And I know there are some particular Booktubers I might watch for specific kind of genres or specific type of books. And and even if I know there might be some Booktubers I follow where I don't always love what they recommend, but they're still always very interesting. So and I still kind of like to try and look on my library. At the moment the libraries are closed, but the library app that we have in Ireland is really, really good. I love the app they have for like ebooks and audiobooks, and I do still like to try and browse that now and again and find random books to look at.
So do you have a big, like, do you own a lot of books?
Yeah, I do own a lot of books, but a lot of my books I have on my Kindle, but I also would get a lot of books from the library too, like a good majority of my books from the library. I'm quite good at reading a book and then getting rid of it.
Good.
If I feel like it's either not an absolute favorite, or if I know I'll never want to reread it, it immediately goes like an unhaul pile, and that normally then gets given to like my aunties, or my dad will always have someone, or just a charity shop, or like
I need to get better about that. I need to. But so do you DNS?
I very rarely. I like to give, because there's been so many books I've read where I haven't really had any particularly strong feelings about it, but then maybe the last few chapters something has happened. So I love to give a book the chance to the very last page to get me. So
that's why I don't. It's like just that FOMO of what if those last couple chapters, you never know.
And I think I'm naturally like a slightly nosy person. So I like to know what's going to happen, and I hate not knowing the full story. Like I need to know like all the details of everything. And like even with some things, you might see some people say like, oh, I didn't like this book because like there was so much detail in like the classes they were taking, or this, that, or the other. And I'm like, I want to know all of that.
Really?
Like I want to know like people's shopping list sometimes. Like if I like the writing, or if I like the characters, I like to know like everything about their life, because I think I just love to create a full picture.
So I guess, would you say you're more of a character driven or plot driven reader?
I'm a little bit of both, actually. I think I actually don't really mind if I like either or. Like you could have terrible characters but a very exciting plot, or like you could, either or. So I like to mix it up. I do. I'm never I'm not an either or person. It's
okay,
give me everything.
Equal opportunity all around.
Yeah, exactly.
Who are some of your favorite authors?
God, I feel like so many to name.
It's so hard. That's like such an on the spot question.
I really like John Gwynne, who's a fantasy writer. He writes some really great things as well as Mark Lawrence. Robin Hobb, I've only read one of her books, but I know that I will love the rest. You know, that kind of way, even though I haven't read everything, I know I'm going to like the rest of them. And then I also really, really love Sarah Rees Brennan. She's Irish and she writes a lot of like YA paranormal fantasy books. She would be very good friends with Cassandra Clare and worked a lot on the Shadowhunter books with her.
Okay.
And Louise O'Neill as well is an Irish author. She tends to write contemporary kind of literary fiction that is kind of hard hitting a lot of the time and looks at some really important topics and issues. And tends to make like statements with her books in like really great ways. So she's really great too. I really, really love her.
Are you a pretty generous rater, would you say? Like, do you give a lot of 5 stars?
Not particularly. Like I think I'd give a lot of 4 stars. And then if I have a really like strong feeling at the end of the book, that will be like the 5 star for me. I think I give a lot of like 3.5 to 4 stars. And then for me, like it has to be particularly difficult for me to give a book like 2 stars or under.
Well, that's where when you were saying like kind of a hard hitting, like I think I've realized I have to like cry in a book to give it a 5 star. Like I have to be that emotionally moved, or unless it's like a nonfiction. But like I think for a fiction, I need to cry.
They're very specific like books. Like there's kind of rare books that would have like made me kind of tear up, and I actually have a video coming out during March during the Irish Readathon about books that made me emotional for a variety of different reasons. And I actually like it's only recently I've been thinking about what books made me cry and like what books like gave me that like lump. I'd get the lump in my throat maybe sometimes rather than like actual tears. And like there was a book I was reading recently, Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier, and there was a very, very tough scene in that. My boyfriend came up and I was just like sitting in the bed almost like catatonic, and he was like, what's wrong? And I was like, this like really bad thing just happened, and I was genuinely like, I just like need a minute. Like just go away and come back in a while.
See, and like that I love that. For me would probably be a 5 stars like that. Where you cared that much about the characters that you're like, I just need to process this, like I just went through it.
That's exactly how I felt.
So how did the Irish Readathon get started?
That got started, so this is our 4th year of doing it now. So started in 2018. And it started when, because I'd always loved like the idea of doing something Irishy in some way. And then it was Leanne over at Leanne Rose got in touch with me because we'd kind of been like friends just because we were both Irish booktubers, and we'd met up before and done like book shopping and stuff. So we were fairly like good friends. And she kind of reached out to me and was like, I'd love to do an Irish Readathon. Like, would you be in? And I was like, yes. Like I didn't even need to think about it. I was like, absolutely, yes, would love this. And we got a couple of other people involved the first year who don't do Booktube anymore, but they were involved in the first year, and then it seemed to go down really well and we had such a good time. So we came back then in 2019 and we got Elaine from Elaine Howland, who's also Irish. So she came on board to help us then to be our third host. And then the last 3 years then it's been the 3 of us, and it's just so much fun. I just love it so much, and I feel like as soon as it finishes, I'm preparing for the next one and trying to think of like ideas and things that we can do. And we're really excited for this year because we think it's probably going to be our best year. And it feels like a year that's almost bigger in terms of like a lot more people are like getting involved and excited about it. And it's just so great.
I think I'm really excited just to like comb through my shelves and see if I have anything. And I was telling you before we were on camera that I've been to Ireland a couple times, and both times I got sucked into like quaint little bookshops where I bought we bought an extra suitcase so I could bring books home. Like, is that and some of them are still on my shelves, and it was probably
Dublin has some lovely like little bookshops and like some like secret bookshops that like you don't even know are there until like you go down like a little like corridor, and there's so many lovely bookshops and like all around.
It is probably my favorite city in the world. I just think it's like the whole city. I mean, it's a city and so it's got bad stuff, but like it's just very charming. Very charming.
Yeah, and I think when people find out that, like, because we're used to kind of, the thing is with Ireland as well, is that we know that we have a reputation for, like, you know, the 100,000 welcomes, and that, you know, Ireland people are looked at very fondly, like Irish people are looked at very fondly, like in other countries.
Right.
So we never want to let our side down, if you know what I mean. We know that, like, we have to be good, or else, you know, we don't want to be the one unfriendly Irish person someone might meet. So, like, people are always, I think, like, they always want to be welcoming, and they always want to be helpful and kind and everything. So
yeah, and I mean, from my experiences, it definitely is. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what are some of your bookish buzzwords? Like, if this is in a book, you will read it.
Oh, that's really hard, actually.
Yeah.
I think like something like an adventure or a journey. I would really like spells as well, like with magic and things like that. And then when it comes to maybe like more contemporary fiction, I don't really know. I think, like, for me, it's just like, it can be anything, because I read such a variety of things. It can really be anything for me. And like at the moment, I really like reading things about, like, maybe, like, even in terms of reading from different perspectives of mine, whether it be from, you know, a queer experience, or, you know, a person of color as well, and like being able to see through eyes that are like different of mine and different experiences to mine, even like for a way of me being able to like understand and learn and really, you know, just like, because it's something that I do really want to do, is add more of these books to my lists as well. So I'm definitely like at the moment, those are the type of books as well that I'm really eager to pick up and read. I read a really great book recently in January called Open Water, I think it was, and it was just really great. It was about a young Black man in London. And his experiences and this romantic relationship he gets into, and it's all told through second person narrative, which is quite unusual to see in a book. And there was just something so beautiful about it that, like, it was just stunning. And I really liked that book.
You've read You, haven't you? By Carolyn.
So that was one of the only other books I'd seen in that type of narrative, and it was so different from that, because that one was so creepy. Where this one, it's like you really feel like you're seeing the secret, like, side of this man, that this vulnerable side of him that he is afraid to show to anyone else. And you feel like you're like in on this like secret, and it's precious, you know.
I wish that was more common, because really You, I think, is the only book I can think of that I've ever read in second person.
I think it's hard to do well. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were authors who tried to do it, and when they went to like their editors or their agents, they were told to change it. Because I think it's very specific books and specific stories that it can be told well in.
No, that you're probably right, but especially like in the thriller world, I'm surprised there's not more of that. But
especially since You came out, because they did it so well.
And I really didn't like You, but I wonder if it's the style or if it's just the book. I don't know. So kind of with that, what do you wish there was more of in the publishing world?
One of the things that I actually really love seeing in stories is, in terms of stories about young girls and women, is just mentions of like periods and menstruation, and the fact that like women's bodies go through like all these different things, like it's different for like different times of the month. And like when I see like a book that like talks about a period, or a girl, like, you know, talks about like, you know, anything to do with it, I always love it, because it's just so rare.
And not in a derogatory, like, she must be PMSing. Not that way, but like, I think that's definitely a gap. I've never thought of that.
There's the Fury Born series by Claire Legrand is a fantasy series, and it's a really great series, or it's a trilogy. I really love it. And in that, the character gets really bad periods, and when she's on her period, like, she talks about it, and she's like wanting chocolate and like some like sweet things, and like that's something I think anyone who does have a period can like
understand,
you know, completely understand. And so I always love seeing things like that, and especially like in like books like aimed at teenagers and like people growing up who, you know, don't really know yet, like haven't really come to understand their bodies yet, and
Right.
like understanding that too, I think is quite important, just to
Yeah.
see you being represented.
Well, and you've got like books like Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and like stuff
Yeah.
that's like very like that's kind of the purpose,
Mm.
but there's not enough like casual, this is just a part of my life because I'm a woman.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
this is how it
exactly.
goes.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. What do you feel like? Do you feel like there's anything in the booktube world that's missing?
um one of like for me with booktube, it's kind of interesting because I follow so many different channels and I try and watch like everyone's videos. They're like I've such a long watch later list all
Me
the
too.
time because I try
Yeah.
and just watch everyone's videos.
Yeah.
And I really hate when people say like, oh, like there's not enough of this genre, or everyone reads the
Right.
same books and everyone just reads like the same, like Sarah J Maas and
YA
whatever
fantasy.
which like I've read some of Sarah J Maas's books and there's some of them I really enjoy, and it is a thing that like she's very, very popular at the moment, like, which is natural. That just
For a
people
reason,
get
I'm
popular
sure.
here and there,
Yeah.
and within various booktubers who follow different genres, you'll see the same books appear because that's what people are reading. But I hate people who say booktubers only read these
Yeah.
popular releases, because I'm like, no, they don't. Like, if
Yeah.
you just went a little bit deeper, like, I feel like there is something out there for everyone when it comes to booktube. You just have to have a little bit of patience and a little bit of like work, and you will find the people who you love and will read the books that you love. So I think in terms of booktube, it's not necessarily what is missing, but it's like, don't give up on it so easily, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Well, because we're a small community, like
Yeah.
even the big people are not big in YouTube standards.
Yeah.
So finding people can be tricky for sure. But I agree. I think they're like you can fall down a rabbit hole and find so many different things.
Yeah.
And like really in the past year or two, I feel like booktube has changed in a really good way that like
Yeah.
if you like vlog, like I'm the same. I follow so many people and I try to watch every single video. And there are so many people that like I don't think I'll ever read any of the books they're talking about, but
Yeah.
I just love their creativity, the vlogs, the
Yeah.
content. Like, it's just, yeah, I feel like you can find almost anything.
Definitely.
What were some of your favorite books of last year?
Last year I read Don't Touch My Hair by Emma Dabiri, which I absolutely loved, and is one that I still talk about all the time because I thought it was amazing. And Emma Dabiri is Irish Nigerian as well, so like I just love toting that she's like I'm going to claim her. She's Irish, like, you know what I mean? I always claim all the Irish writers, and it's just one of those nonfiction books that is so informative, but also the way she writes is just so like, she's not preaching, she's not shoving information at you. It's done in a very conversational way, and just the way she talks about like the ties between like say racism and black hair and slavery, and how like black women and men have been almost conditioned to treat their hair, and like all the different things that I never knew about before is absolutely amazing. And I still think about a lot of that now, almost like it's like half a year since I've read it, and I still think about it a lot. Mm-hmm. And then another book that I loved was A Ghost in My Throat, or A Ghost in the Throat by Doireann na Gríofa, and she's an Irish author as well. And it's kind of a weird mix between a memoir, and then she's also looking at an historical figure in Ireland. Her name is Evelyn Dove, and she's looking into this woman and why history doesn't remember this woman as well as it should do. And she looks at how women are remembered in history, and how women are remembered in history in comparison to maybe their male counterparts, and how all these amazing things belonging to men in history will be kept, and all the things from women like in their lives have been like thrown away or forgotten or turned to dust. And she also was talking about her own experiences at the time when she's becoming almost obsessed with this historical figure. She's going through her own experiences of motherhood, and she's breastfeeding her child, and then she's going through another pregnancy, and she's almost exploring her own role as a woman and as a mother in her life and in like the modern world, and it just goes through like these two, they're two very different stories, but at the same time there's a lot of similarities because they're both mothers, they're both Irish, they're both have like different things that they're doing, they're both scholars in a way, and it's really interesting. It's something that's very hard to explain because it's so unusual.
Yeah.
But it's one of those ones I feel like I can read at different points in my life, like, and I'll always get something new out of it, because like, you know, like right now I'm unmarried, I don't have children. I'm sure if I read this in a few years, if I have children, I will identify with different parts of it as a mother. Or if I decide that that's not a route I want to go on, I'll probably look at other parts, and it's just very interesting, and I think a lot of people will get different things out of it and have a lot of different opinions.
So, I guess I don't know what to ask, but like, you are such an awesome feminist that I like often get motivated and like inspired by you. Like, was your home a very feminist home when you were growing up, or how did you become such a strong, you know?
Well, for me, it was like I was always in like a very supportive home, and I've always been in a place where my mom and dad have, you know, they've always encouraged me to do anything I wanted to. I was never held back or told I had to be a certain way. But my Gran is probably one of the main central like women in my life. And she would be always like, from the time you were young, that women are the best, and we're, you know, like we can rule the world. And like, she's the person who like first brought me to the library and like introduced me to the fact that like there's a place you could get books and read them and then come back and get more books, and like like wow, like my mind was blown. So like, yeah, she's always someone who you can go to for like those type of discussions about like all sorts of like feminist issues, and you know, she's just been amazing. And yeah, she's probably like one of my favorite people in the world, and one of my favorite like women ever. So yeah, she's definitely probably has helped with that.
Well, like when I found out I was pregnant the first time, I was like terrified. I did not want a girl at all, because I was like, gosh, yeah, I just don't know what I would do with a girl. And now here I am a couple of years later, and I have two of them. And I'm like, this is such an awesome but terrifying like opportunity that like I really want to, especially, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever have more girls or boys or whatever, but like I really want to like raise some strong girls. So I'm hoping. So what were some of your least favorites?
I was actually looking at my video earlier, like in preparation for this, and for my least favorites, it was like there was nothing like that I read I think that was absolutely terrible. There was a couple of like kind of disappointments for me. There was one called The Animals at Lockwood Manor, which was one that I thought, first of all, I think when I first picked it up, I thought it was going to be a completely different book. I thought it's a World War II historical fiction, and it's about a woman who travels with like the stuffed animals and the kind of what's the word I'm looking for, from the museum, that they have to travel out of London during the war because obviously they could be bombed, and they go to this country house and put all the animals and stuff in there. And the house is just weird, and it doesn't seem like everything's right in the house, and the people in the house are strange, and there's a daughter that, you know, there's a lot of mystery around her, and the woman who is looking after all these animals like is trying to figure out what's going on, while also kind of being like brought into like this mystery and getting to know the daughter, and like a romance starts blossoming, and there's a lot of things in it that you should love, but I actually found the story slightly boring. And then it kind of felt like a series of events would happen and then it would repeat itself, and I was like, but like this kind of thing just happened. And then by the time it got to the end, I was kind of just tired of the story, and I just didn't feel like invested in it. And then
taxidermy or like real like live animals?
No, it was like taxidermy, so you know, like it would be like just different like animals that had been collected and were in like the Natural History Museum. So
interesting.
And then like there was other ones, I think it was the Snow Song by Sally Gardner, and I think she has two names, it's Sally Gardner or Ray Delaney. I think she goes by two names when she's writing books, and that one won was one I thought I would love because it was supposed to be kind of a modern feminist fairy tale. And it ended up just, I listened to it on audiobook, and I wonder if I had read it, if I would have liked it a little bit more. And it was about a girl who was in love with this man, and she was told that she could only marry this man who was called the shepherd if he came back by the first snowfall. Otherwise she had to marry a man in the village called the butcher, who was this awful man, and no one liked him, but he ruled basically everyone because everyone was afraid of him. And these like things happen where the shepherd doesn't come back. She ends up losing her voice, and because she doesn't speak, she ends up almost becoming this person that people in the village will go to, and almost they will tell her their secrets in a way because they know she'll never repeat them.
Sure.
And she ends up getting this kind of almost power, or people start thinking about her in a different way because of this. And there was so many bits in it again that I should have liked, but because the butcher was there and he kept like appearing, and he was so bad and like so awful, and everything he did was terrible, and like all these things would be revealed about him, all these terrible things that he did, and it just almost got like too much to listen to sometimes. And I felt like when I went to read it, I was almost had this feeling where I was like, I just don't want to, like I just don't want to turn it on. And it was just, so by the time I finished it, I was like, oh, thank God. Yeah, it's just that weird one. It just gave me this like weird feeling that I just didn't like, and it just made me feel sad.
That's what, like, I think a book that makes you feel something is good, but a book that makes you like feel like that, nah. Well, are you ready for the rapid fire this or that? Okay.
Hopefully I can. I'm one of these people who like, people are like, oh, like what did you read any good books lately? And I'm like, I can't remember any book I read lately. I don't read books. What do you mean?
Well, I feel like I need to change the name of this because it's never rapid fire. Like I always ask 1,000 questions, but okay, let's get started. Ebook, audiobook, paperback, or hardback?
Paperback.
Really? Do you do a lot of ebooks or audiobooks or anything?
I do a lot of ebooks. I don't like I don't like hardbacks because I think they take up too much space on my shelves.
And like, I like to read at night, and they're heavy. Like my hands are tired by that time.
I love a good floppy paperback.
In fact, like I'm reading this one right now, and it's just very like, it's just very, I love it. Buy or borrow?
Borrow.
Quiet or background noise?
Quiet.
Indoor or outdoor?
Indoor during the winter, and then outdoor when we get a little bit of sun in the summer is always nice. In the garden with the dogs, I do enjoy
that. Meet your favorite author or meet your favorite character?
Ooh, possibly character.
I think so too. I think so too.
We've all learned, I think, that authors can change, and they're not the people you think they are. So, I think characters, you're a bit more secure in knowing who they are.
Like I am fascinated by the writing process, and especially like my favorites, like how they do it. But I'm also like, maybe I don't want to know. I'll just think you're like Santa, like you're in your studio doing magic. Book to film or book to TV series?
Book to film, I think, because with TV series, they can change if they get more popular and they want to do more of them. And then I think the story can change, the characters can change. Where the film, it's kind of, they've kind of less, I guess, time to change the original story.
That's a good point. And like, I feel like if it's a book I loved, then definitely movie. If it's a book I was like, meh, then you can stretch it out. But like, if I know these characters and I like love these characters, you can't mess with them. Let's see. Classics or new releases?
Ooh, possibly new releases, because I feel like there's just so many great books always coming out. I do love classics now and again, and I definitely don't read them enough. But new releases, you're always getting something fresh and exciting.
What if I change it to backlist or new releases?
Ooh. Could be backlist, because like there's so many great books there, like they just build up.
Well, and things become backlist so quickly. Like I can't read all of the new releases that I want to before they're backlist. Like it's a Are you a part? Is Book of the Month in Ireland?
I don't think so. Like when I do see people, it's normally people in North America.
Yeah,
with it.
I can remember. I think it's just US and Canada, maybe. Or
yeah, I actually don't even know if it's in the UK. I haven't seen any UK
yeah.
booktubers with it.
I am wanting a book of the month that is paperback and or a book of the month that is UK covers. I'm wanting that.
It's one of the things I've always found interesting when looking at like American and like North American booktubers is hardbacks always come out first, and you guys have to wait so long for the paperback. Where I don't think it's the same in the UK and Ireland. I feel like I mostly see paperbacks in the shops. Like it's rare to get like a lot of hardbacks.
Really?
I think so. I must look into it properly, but I it's definitely like I definitely feel like it's more paperback here.
Yeah, because here it's very much like you walk into a store, it's all hardback. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And do you prefer the UK covers normally, or do you have a preference?
I normally don't really mind. There are like a few series where I really don't like the UK covers, because in Ireland we would get the UK covers as well, obviously.
Right.
And like things like Susan Dennard's Truth Witch series. I love the American covers for that.
Oh, really?
And I just don't like the UK covers as much. And those are ones I've gotten from the library, so I don't have them. But I think if I saw the US covers in the shop, I would pick those up straight away.
Yeah, like I've always wondered, like I want to talk to somebody in marketing or something and be like, why are they so different? And like, what is it in the UK market that makes these covers appealing versus these? And like, I feel like if I talk to UK people, they often like, it's like, you want what you don't have, basically.
Yeah. I think that's probably what it is.
No new books or no rereading. And I mean, no new to you books. So either nothing, no new books or no rereading.
I would actually say no new books, because like when I was younger, like I wouldn't get a lot of new books. Like, so I just would reread my favorite stories. And I think I have enough books that I love that I could reread them all the time and just be happy.
Gosh, every time people say that, I'm shocked, but I don't know what it is in my brain. I like cannot let myself reread very much because I don't know. Like I feel like there's just so many books, so little time. So standalones or series?
I like series.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's like a sweet spot in length?
I say maybe but like 5 or 6 is like really great. Like I like a trilogy. I like 3, and 3 feels like a nice solid like number. And there's ones that like I think is it the Wheel of Time? It's like really, really long. I haven't even picked that up, but I know like there's loads of books in that. And then obviously Game of Thrones and things like that, where there are a few that are like maybe 5 or 6 that like I feel like that's long, but like when there's like it's almost like 2 trilogies together. So
yeah. And do you like to read series like as they're coming out or once they're all done?
I don't mind reading them as they come out. Sometimes if like I get like if there's a lot of time in between, I might reread the first or the second one, or try and look up like my review almost of it to see what I said and what I thought. But yeah, for me it's generally like as they come out, or like even as I see them in the library, I might like be like, oh, that's what I need to read, and I'll pick it up. Like for me, I've been reading the Karen Slaughter Grant County series, and every time I finish one, I just reserve the next one in the library. So I might not get it straight away. I might have to wait like a month or 2 months or whatever, but it's just nice to have it reserved and be like, that will come my way eventually.
Yeah. So Karen Slaughter, is there anything like that is too much for you?
I don't think so. Like, because with Karen Slaughter, she's very, very dark. She's probably one of the darkest authors I've read. And there was the second book in that series. It kind of focuses on like a child sex ring, and that is probably one of the hardest things I've read about. Just because it's just like it's maybe because it's just so like you don't see it as much like in to say it's weird, but like violence against women is almost you are kind of used to seeing.
Desensitized to it.
Yeah, and like you kind of get used to seeing it just in the paper or the news, where things like that, when it comes to like something where it's child abuse, is just that much harder to stomach. So that was one of the only times I've been like, oh, like that's really hard to like, you know, I felt weird for a while after reading that, and it wasn't like the nicest to read. But at the same time, like I read a really good interview with Karen Slaughter that was just inserted at the back of the last book I read of hers, and she talked about why, like how different it is for her as a female who writes these type of books, and how reaction to her books tend to be a little bit different versus if a man was writing the same thing. And it did actually make me think about how I react to her books and her female characters.
Yeah.
And even how she writes, she's a character who went through like a really, really bad abusive like event in her first book of Grant County, and that character is not a nice character to follow for the rest, and she goes through loads of ups and downs and always the wrong decisions, and she's someone I have a very hard time reading about. But she also, with Karen Slaughter was saying, I wanted to write about a woman whose story of abuse isn't I'm stronger and I got over it and I'm great now because I, you know, overcame my trauma. She's someone who still struggles with it every day, and I just found it so interesting for her to talk about that. And it definitely is like makes me think differently going into her books now, I think, and how I react to certain things that she writes. And I'm like, is it because it's a woman writing about like violence against women, and it just feels weird,
different,
like when you are just so used to it coming from like men, or like, you know, male writers and male characters seen from a distance, like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, jumping back in, solo or book club? Like,
solo. Yeah, solo. I think I don't do a whole lot of book club, but I kind of treat Booktube as a book club.
Yeah, that's why I think it's the best of both worlds, because you get to pick what you're reading and how fast you're reading, and yet you still get to talk to people about the books you're reading.
Yeah, and you might know specific people who have read those books, and you can just message them and be like, "Oh my god, I read this."
Yeah, so exactly. Yeah, but it's no obligation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coffee or tea?
Tea. I don't drink coffee.
Really? Not at all?
Yeah, I don't like it. Yeah. Just always been tea.
Yeah, I'm really like, in fact, I'm drinking tea right now. I'm really trying to get into tea, and I don't know why I can't, but maybe I just haven't found.
It might be more like Irish breakfast tea with milk, not so much herbal teas.
Okay. Yeah. I try not to do caffeine, but I need it. But I'm doing herbal right now. But what's your favorite snack?
Oh, I do like crisps, like this the savory, I think, and but they're not so great for when you're reading a book, because like your hands can get greasy. So yeah, it would just like, it's normally just like tea and a biscuit, I guess, or like sliced cake or something is always nice.
Yeah, I was just like, I think it was on BuzzFeed or something, but like all of the times where Americans and people from the UK can't communicate because like crisps are chips, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Crisps are chips and not
chips, I think even like biscuits are different. Like when I'm talking biscuits, I mean like cookies and things like that, not so
like somebody was saying, like, of course people in the UK know and we know, but like biscuits and gravy is a huge thing here, and like
I don't understand that at all.
And that sounds disgusting if you're talking about like biscuits, like well, that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for joining me. This is so fun to just learn more about you. And everybody, Irish Readathon is going on right now, so I know Aoife will have a lot of great content. I will definitely link her channel, and that is it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.